Put your fork down for 1 second and answer this honestly. After you eat dinner tonight, what are you going to do? If your answer is sit on the couch, I need you to keep watching, because what you do in the next 20 minutes after a meal might matter more for your blood sugar than what you actually ate. Here's a number that surprised me when I first came across it. Researchers at George Washington University put people over 60 in a room for 48 hours straight, hooked up to continuous blood sugar monitor, and tested something incredibly simple. A 15-minute walk after each meal. Not a workout, not a gym session, just a walk. And it controlled blood sugar over a full 24-hour period, just as well as one long 45-minute walk. But here's the part that should really get your attention. It was significantly better than that long walk specifically at controlling the blood sugar spike after dinner, the exact meal most of us eat, and then go sit down for the rest of the night. If that surprises you, stay with me, because I've got 3 more of these, and one of them involves something you're probably doing wrong every single day without knowing it in the order you eat your food. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not going to pretend to be one. What I am is someone who spends hours digging through actual published research, so you don't have to. Today I pulled every study I could find on blood sugar and people over 60 specifically, not general population data, not marketing claims, actual clinical research. 4 things came up again and again. Let's go through all 4, because the second one is the one almost nobody talks about, and it might be the easiest fix on this entire list. Before I go further, tell me something in the comments. When was the last time you had your blood sugar checked? Just drop the time frame, this year, last year, or honestly you can't remember. I want to see where this audience actually stands. Reason number 1. The timing of movement matters more than the amount. I already gave you the walking study, but let's actually understand why it works. Because once you understand the mechanism, you'll actually do it instead of just nodding along. When you eat, carbohydrates break down into glucose, and that glucose needs a way into your muscle cells. Normally, insulin does that job, but researchers have found that muscle contraction itself, just moving, opens up a separate doorway into the cell called GLUT4, and it does this without needing much insulin at all. This matters enormously as we age, because insulin naturally becomes less efficient over the years. So when you walk right after eating, you're giving your body a second way to clear that glucose out of your bloodstream. One that doesn't depend on insulin working perfectly. Multiple studies have now confirmed the same pattern. A 10 to 20 minute walk after a meal reduces the blood sugar spike more effectively than the same walk taken before the meal or later in the day. One study even found a 10-minute walk immediately after eating was nearly as effective as a full 30-minute walk. The takeaway isn't walk more, it's a walk at the right time, specifically within the first 30 minutes after you finish eating. If you're already nodding because you know this is you sitting straight down after dinner, comment the word guilty below. No judgment, I want to know how many of us this actually applies to. Reason number 2. The order you eat your food changes how your body responds to it. This is the one that surprised me the most when I went through the research, because it doesn't require eating less, exercising more, or spending a single extra dollar. It just requires changing the order of what's already on your plate. Here's what multiple clinical trials have found. When people ate vegetables and protein first and saved the carbohydrate heavy part of the meal, the bread, the rice, the potatoes for last, their blood sugar spike after the meal was dramatically lower. We're not talking about a small difference. One study measuring the total glucose response over 3 hours found it was nearly 40%. Lower simply by putting vegetables first and carbs last, using the exact same meal, same ingredients, same calories. Why does this happen? Fiber from vegetables forms a kind of gel in your digestive tract that physically slows down how fast sugar from the carbs later in the meal gets absorbed into your blood. Protein does something similar. It slows stomach emptying and triggers hormones that help your body manage insulin more effectively. So by the time the carbohydrates actually hit your system, your body is already prepared, and the sugar enters your bloodstream gradually instead of all at once. Practically, this means something as simple as eating your salad and your chicken before you touch the rice, instead of eating everything mixed together or carbs first, could measurably change your numbers. No new grocery list, no giving up the foods you love, just a different order on the same plate. Type the number 2 in the comments if you're going to actually try this at your very next meal. I mean it, tonight. Reason number 3. Poor sleep raises blood sugar even if you eat perfectly. This one is uncomfortable because it means you could be doing everything right with food and exercise, and your blood sugar could still be creeping up because of something happening at night that has nothing to do with your plate. A study funded by the National Institutes of Health took women with healthy sleep patterns and reduced their sleep by just an hour and a half a night down to about 6.2 hours for 6 weeks. That's not extreme sleep deprivation. That's an amount of sleep loss a lot of people would consider normal. The result? Insulin resistance increased by nearly 15%, and the effect was even stronger in postmenopausal women. The mechanism makes sense once you see it laid out. When you don't get enough sleep, your body produces more cortisol and more stress-related hormones, and those hormones directly interfere with how well insulin works. On top of that, sleep-deprived cells simply don't respond to insulin as well. So glucose lingers in the bloodstream longer than it should. Separately, sleep apnea specifically, which becomes far more common after 60 and often goes undiagnosed, has repeatedly been linked to poor blood sugar control, independent of weight or diet entirely. So if your blood sugar numbers don't match how carefully you're eating, sleep is one of the first places worth looking. And it's worth mentioning to your doctor, especially if you snore heavily or wake up feeling exhausted, no matter how many hours you were in bed. Reason number 4, chronic stress keeps your blood sugar elevated even when you haven't eaten anything. This is the one people dismiss the fastest, and it's the one the research takes the most seriously. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol, and cortisol's entire job, going back to when humans needed to physically run from danger, is to dump extra glucose into your bloodstream fast so your muscles have fuel to react. The problem is that modern stress, financial worry, family stress, health anxiety, isn't solved by running anywhere. There's no physical action to burn off that glucose, so it just sits in your bloodstream. And if the stress is chronic, not just a bad day, but a bad few months, cortisol stays elevated. And researchers have found it actually blocks glucose from properly entering your muscle cells, the same GLUT4 pathway we talked about with walking, except in reverse. Chronically high cortisol makes your cells less responsive to insulin over time, contributing to the same insulin resistance. We've been talking about this entire video. This doesn't mean stress alone causes diabetes. It means stress is a real, measurable piece of the blood sugar puzzle, not just an emotional afterthought, and managing it however that looks for you, whether that's daily walks, time with family, prayer, or simply better sleep, is genuinely part of managing your blood sugar, not separate from it. So let's bring this together into something you can actually use. Tonight after dinner, take a 15-minute walk. Not tomorrow, not starting Monday, tonight. At your next meal, eat your vegetables and protein first, and eat the rice, bread, or potatoes last. This week, take an honest look at your sleep. If you're consistently getting under 7 hours, or if you snore heavily or wake up gasping, that's worth a real conversation with your doctor, not something to brush off. And give yourself permission to treat stress management as part of your health plan, not a luxury on top of it. None of this requires a new diet, a supplement, or spending a single extra dollar. It requires timing, order, and awareness, 3 things that are genuinely in your control starting today. If this video gave you even one thing you didn't know before, do me a favor and subscribe, because every week I go through real published research, just like this, and turn it into something you can actually use. No hype, no miracle cures, just what the science actually says. And if you want to go deeper on how sleep specifically affects your health after 60, I've got another video breaking that down in full. Right here, that's a perfect next watch. Let me know in the comments which of these 4 you're starting with tonight. I read every single one.